Lungile, and today we're interviewing the famous, phenomenal Danny Glover. I'm so nervous, but I can handle it.
You can handle it.
Yeah,
You're doing well.
Okay, I'm doing it. Let me say I can handle it.
All right.
Okay, can you please tell us about Mr. Danny Glover's success?
For me, I want to start out again because the film represents a period of time of my own maturation, my own development. In 1967, I was 20 years old. And the Black Power movement was, as I reflect on it, had an enormous impact on my life. As a student at San Francisco State University, we were very close to the ideas around the Black Power movement, as many young people were. And the movie reflects on that. Swedish television had an archive of tapes that had been seen once on Swedish television, and were housed, and we were able to, with Jannica and Joran, they will found those tapes, and then we'd be able to put together a sense of what that movement meant. Now, there's always an idea of what a movement is about. Yeah. As you know, being South African, there are ideas that are always in the ethers about what this movement was about. There are aspects of it that are talked about, and certainly there are aspects of it that are not referenced. And this attempts, through interviews of men and young men and women involved in the movement, leaders in the movement, Stokely Carmichael, Bobby Seals, Angela Davis, and many more other voices that are able to kind of reflect on that movement, to talk about that movement and what the objectives are. One of the things that we've done at Louverture Films, Jocelyn Barnes and myself, is to provide films that not only entertain people or give people a glimpse of a world that they haven't been stories that haven't been accustomed to, but also to create the groundwork and the framework for a discussion about the stories and others.
You just mentioned that you guys, it's like a collaboration of all the stories that just need to. Why is it now that you're telling the story of the Black Panthers, where it's a society everybody thinks you've forgotten about it?
Well, I think this whole process of democracy is one that's going through transitions ongoing. In itself, it's an evolution. We have the election of an African-American president, and the mobilization for that election of young people coming together was historic for this country. And I believe the civil rights movement itself was historic for this country. As Dr. King and many of the local leaders and many men and women who were leaders of the civil rights movement used that as a platform to deal with the issues of de jure segregation, whether you can drink at this water faucet, or whether you can sit on this toilet, or whether you can sit at this lunch counter, was a part of that movement, and the right to vote. Remember, the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1964, the Fair Housing Act soon after that. And the Voting Rights Act was historic for that moment, because it said that the people who had been denied the right to vote because of poll taxes, property taxes, any other way to exclude them, now had the right to vote, and it was a federal guarantee. I want to say why I say a reimagination of democracy, and it's important to understand this, because every struggle of the African American rights and justice have been always a reimagination of democracy, from the beginning, from the abolition of slavery to the long struggle through Jim Crow to reach the civil rights movement, all of those. And every struggle itself, even the women's struggle for women's rights, is a reimagination of democracy. And how do these people now become inclusive within a particular process? And I think when we look at it from that vantage point, we get away from the kind of violent connotations about Black Power. We always associate it, so when you deal with it from that vantage point, you're looking at it from the vantage point in which people are diminished. their aspirations are diminished, they're marginalized when you think it's bad, and they're criminalized as a result of thinking that it's violent. So it's important to understand it from that vantage point. Now, the real question becomes, in all of this discussion, is what is democracy and who defines it? How is it defined? Is it defined from the people at the bottom, or is it defined from the people at the top?
That's true, eh? But that can also be... I'm a South African citizen.
Yeah.
And you say you've been to South Africa, and you can say it starts from the bottom, but in a country like America, you'll never be able to say that. You guys, okay, I can't say you guys, but the president, like the government, I don't like that. It's more of let us be here on paper. They're not about people's feelings.
Well,
so you can't. Yeah.
Well, let's just go back for the origin of this whole idea. The origins of these liberal democracies come out of the Enlightenment period, more than 250 years ago. The idea is at the same time that slavery manifests itself. And these were ideals around self-governance. Those ideals paralleled with an increasing knowledge and awareness of the technological revolution that was about to happen. So that's the first thing. But if you look at the Revolutionary War itself, which brought about the Declaration of Independence and brought about the Constitution, the one key element of that was the Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights was brought about by people from the ground up, struggling and said, this Constitution, this Declaration of Independence does not protect our rights. So we want to look at all those three articles. Probably the most important, the one that came from the people themselves, was the Bill of Rights. Probably one of the most, in its construction, probably the most progressive constitutions in the world is the Constitution of the New South Africa. But that comes from the various struggles that occurred on from the first time that the Dutch landed and everything else, to the institution of the Nationalist Party of the apartheid system in 1949. So all of those things, and people struggled for that, and it's usually struggled from the bottom up. So we can talk about what governance is in relationship to what people's ideas of themselves and their idea of themselves in relationship to governance, the ideals in relationship as citizens. That's another thing, because often there's a discord between that. And I believe even now in South Africa, there's some sort of discord between what had been promised in 1994 and what is happening now. Yeah.
More about you. What kind of person do you see yourself? Like, you've got a diverse role in our society as a filmmaker, director, producer. What do you categorize yourself as?
First of all,
yes,
a father.
Of
It all starts there. Starts there. And whatever I am is that comes after that.
Yeah.
You know, but in the sense, in looking at what I see myself as, is a citizen artist. I'm not only just an artist, I'm a citizen. And I see myself as a cultural worker, which means that the work that I do, I try to find value in it, to bring value. So it is important. That's how I see myself, you know. My first collection, my whole theatrical background comes from doing the work of the great South African playwright Ethel Fugard from 1975. That's my theatrical background. So within the content of that work, I got an idea of what kind of stories I wanted to say, whose side in the world I was on. That's important. It's one, whose side in the world you're on. Whose side in the world you're on, and allow those to reflect the work that I do. It doesn't always, but I get a chance to do a major studio film called Lethal Weapon 2, and in there is the issue with the smuggling of cougar rounds. You know what I'm saying? So we're able to kind of use that as a platform to tell another story.
One more question.
Okay.
My favorite ultimate book was The Color Purple, and then when I watched the movie, it was very intriguing. In 1985, when that movie was shot, which was also the 12th movie, how did it feel acting as Mr. Albert?
Well, I thought when I look at the film, I look at the story itself, and within the story itself, They're antagonists and protagonists, and I would like to think that Mr. Albert,
For both characters.
Albert was a character that was necessary for the unfolding of that story. Now, you know, my grandmother wanted to get a switch after me and whip me for playing that role because she thought I was raised better than to act like that. But I think if we're talking about the movie 25 years from now, and you weren't even born in 25 years ago. So the fact that we're talking about the movie, it resonates with people still. And the role of Albert was essential to the story itself.
Was it fun though?
Because we're talking about how do, you know, once we know the system of apartheid, once the subordinate, once the oppressor liberates the oppressed, he liberates himself as well.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Mr. Jennifer.
Take care.